G'day. So, how do people succeed at meditation? Well, the answer is very simple. It's just like anything else in life. If you want something, you go for it. Just the same way if somebody wants to be rich, they don't waste their time buying Tats Lotto tickets. They work at it. You know? It's the same thing with meditation. Those people run around chasing gurus hoping to get the magic formula. Well, they don't succeed because they're not doing the work. Now, meditation and self-understanding, it's a matter of realization. Mostly you come to understand things retrospectively after having done a lot of work. We all start out thoroughly deluded. Doesn't matter which culture you're born into, you'll have a head full of some religious nonsense. There'll be a whole lot of goals set for you by family members, or you've been let down by family members in one way or another. Right? We've got all these precious honours which we have to sort through. Now, in the middle of all that, some people get really curious. Well, what's this all about? What is life all about? Right? Now, that's where meditation comes in. It's one of the options that is placed before us, offered as an attempt to solve that question. What's it all about? Now, when it comes to meditation, it's just like anything else. It's how much time you spend engaged in it, thinking about it, doing it. Now, by way of an example, a negative example, what most people do, it seems, in our culture, is that they spend most of their life trying to compensate themselves for the bad start they had in life. Or they've been traumatized as children and they spend their entire life trying to unpick all that trauma. And they engage in a whole range of things to deal with those internal issues. And they fantasize. And they spend a lot of time fantasizing, endlessly circular thinking. And that's where their life energy goes. So they spend their time, wanting to be rich. So they think all the time about angles and schemes and plans and projects, and their whole life is dedicated to this making money. And if they don't do that, they won't make money. Well, the same thing is with meditation. It's a matter of spending the time. And if you are really into it, you'll organise your life affairs so that's how you give yourself as much time to do that as you possibly can. And there are various ways that people go about doing that. Now, this is the only way that you're going to achieve at anything in life, is you go for it. It's the same thing with meditation. Now, we all have mixed motives in the beginning. We're all dreadfully deluded when we start. The other thing that determines whether you succeed is the actual motive that you've got. Why are you doing it? And in my observation, there's only one motive that actually gets you to the end of the project. And that's raw curiosity, an insatiable need to know, to understand. That's the only thing that will get you right to the end. Because in the process, you need to be willing to turn over every rock, even though you think there's nothing under it, just to make sure that there's nothing under it. That's the kind of attitude that's required if you're going to succeed in meditation. Now, there are a few examples of almost good enough. Now, I criticise the traditions. Quite happy to bag the traditions, but that's a little bit unfair of me because these things do actually have quite a few interesting things to offer as well. You've got to pick and choose. You've got to be discriminating. Now, there's an ideal that's in Tibetan Buddhism, the ideal of the bodhisattva. And a bodhisattva is an individual who's on the cusp of enlightenment, which, maybe there's no such thing as enlightenment. Let's go with the story. On the cusp of enlightenment, and withholds themselves, refrains from taking the final step, because if they do so, they will lose contact with the physical realm, supposedly, uh, and they won't be able to help anybody else. So they don't take the last final step, and instead they devote their entire life energy, uh, incarnation after incarnation, to bring every other being to enlightenment before they go themselves. Now, of course, this is another nonsense fantasy. There's no such thing as a bodhisattva. But in fact, it's be rather conceited. How dare a person take it upon themselves to play God or seek to impose their will on other creatures? You know, you're going to be enlightened whether you like it or not. That's the negative side, but the story is to actually highlight a motivation, and that's generosity. It takes a lot of effort to meditate, in a serious way. By effort, I mean, constantly applying yourself to it, constantly immersing yourself in the task. It takes a lot of effort, and that requires energy, and the energy's got to come from somewhere. And generosity supplies a hell of a lot of energy. You're doing it for other people is a way to be motivated, and that will take you to just almost to the end. It's not quite good enough because there's a fatal flaw in it, and there's a very subtle hidden conceit in there of self-image, which brings me to another point. Rather than criticize Buddhism, um, the Buddha taught this idea of non-self. Well, I dispute that he taught that there was no soul, although you can find passages in the Pali Canon which support both sides of the argument. One that he taught no soul, and one that he didn't teach no soul. But I make a lot of sense of it from this point of view, from a modern psychological point of view. He's talking about self-image, who we think we are. And this who we think we are is something which has to be seen through and abandoned. You don't have to have a self-image. It's the whole point. You don't have to be somebody. You just are. And you're just going to leave it at that. Well, there's that subtle conceit in this, I'm going to bring everybody else to enlightenment. Well, that's a very subtle conceit. And that will prevent you from actually cracking the nut. Curiosity, just a desire to know, a relentless desire to know. Curiosity is the one thing which will not rest until it's satisfied. And that's how you get the best result. So, just a little video. But I think very important point. So see you later.